Finally, January is over, so let's talk about my January reads. Hi, I'm Alex, this is Pucksandpaperbacks, and today I'm sharing my January wrap-up. On my channel, I usually do recent reads or monthly wrap-ups, so the way it's going to go from here on out is I'm going to start incorporating stats. I want to do some quarterly wrap-ups, so that will happen as well, but in my wrap-ups, I'm just going to be sharing some statistics that I'm interested in, and if there's anything that I've missed that maybe you're just curious about, definitely let me know in the comments. All of the book titles will be down below in my description, and if you want to purchase any of these, the best way to support me is to use my affiliate link that is attached to each book. It really helps me out. It's no extra cost to you, but it really helps support the channel, so thanks if you do. Let's get into it. In January, I read 5 books. I read a total of 813 pages and listened to 18.7 hours of audio. 4 out of those 5 books has queer rep, and according to Storygraph, it took me an average of 7 days to finish a book. I read 3 YA books and 2 adult. For genre, I read 4 contemporary books and 1 romance novel. For publication year, I read 2 2025 releases, 2 2024 releases, and 1 2022 release. All of these books I read were for videos. I filmed 2 reading vlogs and 1 bonus video for my Patreon. I DNF'd 2 books. Can't Take That Away by Stephen Salvatore is a permanent DNF, and a soft DNF is Homesick by Nino Cipri. Homesick is a short story collection, and I just wasn't in the mood for that, whereas Can't Take That Away, this was my second time trying to read this book, and I just couldn't do it, so I'm permanently DNFing this. For reading challenges, I participated in Buzzwordathon, both the title and cover challenge, and Read Queerly. If you're interested in any of these challenges, I'll have links down below. And I did a video where I recommended some reading challenges, so I'll link that up above for you. January's buzzword for in the title was Truth or Lies. I read The Truth According to Ember by Danica Nava, and the prompt for cover was patterns. I read The In-Between Bookstore by Edward Underhill. For Read Queerly, I completed the prompts plus size / fat main character, time travel, road trip, and winter holiday romance. My reading was super delayed for the beginning of January since I was filming a lot of end of the year content. I started filming my reading vlog. TBR Games picked my TBR, and one of those games picked Lucy Uncensored by Mel and Tegan Hammond. I was kindly sent a copy by the publisher, Knopf, so thank you to them for sending me a complimentary copy in exchange for a review. I enjoyed this. It is following a trans girl who is going to college. She's in her senior year. Her and her best friend Kelly have been dying to go to college. They have dreamt about it. They have Pinterest boards, and they were planning to go to the school Central. They have a great theater program, and they didn't think anything of it. But when they take a tour of the school, Lucy wants a fresh start. She sees that all of the people she went to high school with were there, and she just wants a fresh start as Lucy. So she ends up finding a women's college when she looks up LGBT-friendly colleges. It's a few hours away, so her and Callie go on a road trip to the school. Now, there are some things I had problems with. I think that this is a good contemporary. However, I just hate that we had to add some sort of trauma here, and I didn't like that Lucy didn't learn from the things she was doing. There were a lot of questionable choices that she made, and hey, she's an 18-year-old, so it totally makes sense. But I just wish, for the book's purpose, that she learned from these mistakes. When she finds out about this college, she decides that she will look up the theater program. She finds the professor, and then she finds the professor's son, who she DMs on Instagram and connects with, and he's being a little flirty. So Lucy decides she's going to be stealth in college, and that is a privilege for a lot of trans people, and it can be really scary. And my problem was she doesn't have a good community around her to be mentoring her and helping her through a lot of her bad decisions. And she gets involved with this boy, Ian. He is an older boy. He's a senior in college, and she does not disclose her age. She lies saying that she's transferring from another school, and he finds out that she's trans, and he does not take it very well. It is not a physical assault, but verbally he is very abusive and transphobic, so big trigger warning for that. This is a YA book, and I just wish that didn't happen. I was confused by why it was even in the book, because it doesn't really do anything. She doesn't learn from her mistakes. The only thing that happened was there are people around her who are like, oh, fuck this guy, we're gonna get him banned from campus. But she doesn't learn from her mistakes of lying. You shouldn't be lying about your age, and you should learn how to talk to people about being trans. I totally understand that this is something that happens, and I would have liked them to talk about that, just not in this manner. However, I'm a trans man, so I am not a trans woman. I will never have that experience, so please take my opinion with a grain of salt. But as a trans person reading that, it made me so anxious because I just knew it was building up to that, and I was hoping it wouldn't. I'm glad that it wasn't any physical altercations, but I was really more upset that she lied about her age and that he didn't get upset about that. I would have rather have that storyline, because you shouldn't be lying about your age. It could have gotten really messy, and she does get some help from trans people around her, and she lives in a very small town in Pennsylvania, so I totally understand where her thought process comes from, but that just really set me off and pulled me away from the story, mainly because I was just confused why it was put there. The character does not learn from that experience. It just felt like, hey, let's put in some transphobia for the sake of it. Now, Tegan, one of the authors, she is trans, so I will let you know that this is written by a trans author and her sister is cis. I think it was a well done YA, and I thought it was a fine book. I just cannot stop thinking about that scene. It is engraved in my memory forever. It was really jarring, and it would make me feel bad for a teen who's reading this, especially a trans teen, to be jump scared by that. I have been thinking about this all month as I'm reading new releases, and I just don't know where trigger warnings are anymore. I feel like we just don't have them anymore. However, a book that I'm currently reading did just mention them. I'm just confused why we're not putting trigger warnings in books anymore, especially traditionally published books. I hate when a book doesn't have trigger warnings because the storygraph can't always get it right, and I do not think it's always on reviewers to have that responsibility. I should be able to read a book and have trigger warnings before I read it, and especially in a YA, you need to be disclosing that something like that's going to happen. Even if it's subtle, it still happens, and I really wish it wasn't there. Like I said, it could have been done differently. However, there were some good times, there was some queer joy, but this is not a book where everything is happy and rainbows. And you know what? As a trans person, it's not always like that. But reading a work of fiction, especially about a trans femme character, is really important, since the publishing industry, especially traditionally published books, are lacking in that department. So I really wish we would have had a happier book. Lucy has great support from her friends, and she loves theater, and there was good inclusion there. And I liked getting to see how passionate she was about theater. There's also a dog, which was fun, but there's just a lot of trauma, and I wish we would have maybe had a little bit more joy to complement that. I was happy to see how trans people in this book were advocating for themselves, especially at the college, because we learn that it's not as LGBT friendly or trans friendly. When she enters the college, there are protests going on from trans and LGBT students who are protesting to get a better, more inclusive graduation for trans people, and Lucy's whole point of going to the school to tour it is this going to be safe for me as a trans woman? And she meets wonderful people there. I really loved the queer people that she meets, especially a trans man that she meets. But again, I wish I would have had a little bit more joy. I think the joy does balance the trauma, and I might just be thinking of that one scene way too much, but I just think that there could be better representation here. And again, a lighter book. I wish every trans book didn't have to have some sort of trauma to make it a trans book. You know what I'm saying? We do see just the daily life of Lucy and how being trans affects her. There's a scene where they stop at Cracker Barrel and she is misgender. There's also some scenes where her father weaponizes her dead name against her. There's a lot of animosity from the dad, and he does grow and change, which I enjoyed. And I will point out that the dead name is not on the page. I liked how that was written, because we don't get to really know their dead name or anything. But again, and I just wish that this was a little bit happier. The ending is happy, but there's just a lot going on here. I just think there's better trans femme representation than this, but again, I'm a trans man, I'm not a trans woman, so my experience with this book could be different than a trans woman's. And I know that some people like these stories because it helps them heal in some way. I was like that once, but I still think we need more joy in trans books, especially right now. Next for that vlog, I read the audiobook of The Truth According to Ember by Danica Neva, narrated by Sienna East. I loved this. It was so good. It's a hilarious rom-com about a Native woman in the workplace. We're following Ember, who lies to be an accountant. She gets the job and she learns along the way. While she's there, she meets a Native man, Donawa, who she fancies a lot. She really likes him. But there's a work clause where you're not allowed to date a coworker. So her whole time there, she just is thinking that she doesn't want to get fired. This is a great job. She has not had a lot of luck as a Native person applying to jobs. So when she lies and says she's a white woman and fabricates a lot of the things that she's done, such as saying she has an associate's degree in accounting, she gets the job. And so she just starts lying. And this girl gets in a bunch of lies. But in my vlog, I said, it makes a lot of sense. Like, everything that she lies about, I couldn't really get mad because I was like, well, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like, it's not something you can really get mad at because of the system. And I really like the way that this shared about how Native women are treated in the workforce. I loved Ember as a character. She is so funny and she was just so great. But I could relate to her on so many accounts because she's the oldest sibling and there's a dynamic where her younger brother Sage has recently gotten out of jail and she just has a different look about him and she treats him differently. I really liked seeing that. I just thought that this was so well done. It's a debut romance novel. I cannot wait to read more from this author and I thought it was fantastic. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, go check out that vlog. Next, I started my new series where I'm trying to read my arcs. Every month, at the end of the month, you'll be getting a vlog where I read my NetGalley arcs or some titles that are upcoming that I was sent from publishers. I'm hoping I can continue with this series because I had so much fun with it in January. The first book for that vlog was The In-Between Bookstore by Edward Underhill. I read his YA debut. This was his adult debut and I thought it was great. I had so much fun with this and it healed me in a certain way. We're following Darby, who is a trans man approaching 30 and he is back in his small hometown after he gets laid off from his job in New York. He's back in Oak Falls, Illinois to help his mom move out of his childhood house and move into a condo. There's a dog named Mr. Grumpy. He's a basset hound who is adorable. While there, Darby goes to an old bookstore he used to work at in high school called The In-Between. But when he walks in, it's 2009 and young Darby is at the counter. This whole book talks about what would you do if you could see your younger self? What would you say to them as a trans or queer person? And this just hit me in the feels. It was so well done. I really enjoyed it. The time travel is very subtle. The time travel only happens in the bookstore, so if you're looking for some Back to the Future stuff, you're probably not gonna get that. I don't want to spoil the rest of the book, but the time travel aspect is very light and minimal, I would say, even though it is a big part of the book. I just loved getting to see Darby's character development as he goes to this small town because he's a little snotty. He thinks that he's too good for there and he never fit in, but when he sees his childhood best friend Michael, who he had a falling out with, things change. He learns a lot about his hometown that he didn't know before, and I really loved that because queer people exist everywhere. And I always say this, but just because people don't want to leave, that doesn't make them bad people. And I think it's important to have community anywhere, and it's a privilege to be able to just up and leave from your community and your town. So I really enjoyed this. Edward Underhill is the best, and I highly recommend this. Thanks to the publisher over on NetGalley for approving me for a review copy. If you missed it, over on Patreon, on my highest tier, every month or so I will be pulling from my TBR cup. My patrons gave me some book suggestions and I put them in there, and every month or so I will pick out a book and read it for an exclusive vlog. This month I picked How to Excavate a Heart by J. Maya Arlo, and it was so good. This is a YA wintry romance between two messy, nerdy girls. We're following Shawnee, who recently broke up with her girlfriend, and she has gotten a winter internship to the Smithsonian. So she ends up going to live with her Aunt Beatrice for a couple weeks so that she can go to this internship and do paleontology. This was so fun to learn about paleontology, and then the book starts out where Shawnee is in the car with her mother going to Washington, D.C. to visit Aunt B and go to this internship. And while doing so, they almost hit a girl, and that girl is May, who Shawnee ends up meeting again as a dog walker. We also have a dog here. I feel like January was the month of dogs and books. We have a corgi named Raphael. May is complicated, and so is Shawnee. These are two messy girls, and I love messy queers so much. They are lesbians, and May is not totally confident in herself, and Shawnee isn't as well. Both have not properly come out to their families, and they just have a lot of things going on with each other, and I loved the romance so much. It was so cute, and I had a lot of fun documenting it on Patreon. So much went on in this book, but I loved it so much. There's trigger warning for sexual assault as Shawnee learns that her previous relationship was not healthy, and she learns that having sex is not what she thought. This girl that she was with was a piece of work. Oh my god, she's horrible. I hate her so much. But this was a great book to read for this vlog. I had so many times that I could react to it, and so as I read, I pulled out the camera and I told my patrons my thoughts. So if you have the means and you want to see all of my thoughts, I will have a link down below. There's now a feature on Patreon where I can give my patrons the video, but also I can sell it. So if you want it for $10 and you just want to see some of my thoughts, I'll have the link down below. But overall, I really enjoy this. It is set during Christmas and Hanukkah, but this is not a Christmas book. It was mismarketed when it first came out, so I want to distinctly make sure that everybody knows that this is not a Christmas book. The book does talk about Christmas and Hanukkah and commercialized holidays, so I did use it for the Read Queerly square with the snowflakes on it called Winter Holiday Romance. But I really enjoyed this. I think you can read it during winter or the holidays, but I highly recommend it. Do look out for the trigger warnings though, but if you want a fun queer read with messy sapphics, nerdy queers, and a corgi. Oh, this was so fun. Also, Aunt B, she's so fun. I loved her. This was narrated by Hope Newhouse, and I loved the way she narrated it. Aunt B has her own voice, Shawnee, May, as well as a bunch of other characters do, and this was just really fun. And the last book I read was for the Hear Our Voices book tour. This was also a part of my NetGalley reading vlog. Recommended reading by Paul Katcha. You may have seen this in my 2025 most anticipated releases video. I was so glad to get my hands on this, so thank you to the publisher Zando Projects and Hear Our Voices book tour for sending me a copy in exchange for an honest review. I enjoyed this. It is a light YA summer rom-com following Bobby, who wants to have the summer of Bobby. He's going to host a reading festival. He's going to be with this boy named Truman, who he's really swooning after, but when he confesses his love for Truman, all of those plans go out the window. He can't work with Truman anymore. He might not be able to go to the college, and his summer is turned upside down. So since he doesn't have a job anymore, and the summer of Bobby is in a tailspin, so he calls up his Uncle Andy, who owns Corner Books, a small bookstore in town, and he works there. Bobby is able to revive the place and put in some marketing tools. He also becomes the book whisperer and romance starts matching people to books. That was really fun. I love marketing and I work in publicity, so it was really fun to see how Bobby made the bookstore better. While there, he meets a boy named Luke. He is anti-romantic, brooding, even though when Bobby meets him, he's reading a romance book. But I really loved him. He was not a malicious character. We find out he's pansexual, so that was cool to have that representation because we don't see that very often. I'm not pansexual, so I can't comment on that representation. I just like that Luke was very laid back and casual, and he built up Bobby. He was never mean to him. Bobby does get bullied at some times, but again, this book is very light. The only trigger warnings are body shaming and bullying, but again, it's very light. The characters were really fun, and I really needed a rom-com, and this delivered. I will say my only complaint was I thought this was way too slow of a romance. I devoured this book. It had a chokehold on me, like I was gonna read this book any minute of the day. But I just felt very unsatisfied by the end because I just felt like there wasn't enough chemistry between these two characters because of the type of romance this is. Bobby doesn't see that Luke likes him despite being the romance person. He feels like romance needs to be a big declaration, whereas Luke isn't like that. I just wish we would have gotten a little bit more time with these two, but if you want a sweet, funny read, I highly recommend this, and I can't wait to read more of Paul Koch's work. And that is everything I read in January. Feel free to let me know what you read in January, what was your favorite book, and if you don't feel like leaving a lengthy comment, you can just leave a book emoji so I know you stayed. I hope everybody's doing well because January was a month. Y'all, so much happened to me in January and just everything in general. The world is on fire. I do have some resources down below and a card that I made if you want to help some of the victims of the LA wildfires as well as support some families in Gaza who are rebuilding, and it's just a lot. I feel like every single day of January something new happened. Like the end of January, a plane went down in Philadelphia. There was also a plane crash before that. It was a local mall that I grew up going to. A plane crashed and people died. Oh my god, so sad. And then the next day, my favorite hockey player got traded in the middle of the game. It was horrible and I've been so sad. So let's hope for good vibes in February and let's just forget that January even happened. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you're doing well. Honestly, self-care, please. Thank you so much to my top patrons for their support this month. I really appreciate it and I love making content for them. I posted 2 videos, that vlog I mentioned and a channel assessment where I went over everything on my channel in 2024, looked over my analytics, and I shared my 2025 plans. If you want to support me further, the Patreon link is down below. I have free and paid options. If you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more, here's my last video and you can subscribe here. Thanks for watching and I hope to see you in my next video very soon.